Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review here for episode 8 of the current series of Quantum Leap. This is actually the mid-season finale, the Christmas break that these shows tend to take around this time of year. And this episode here is called Stand By Ben. So is this one any good or isn't it? Let's talk about it.
You are a 16-year-old student.
This isn't some game. We're lost. We've got no water, no food. We're gonna die.
So before we get into this, if you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so. I do review this series on a weekly basis. Obviously there will be a break now, but when the show comes back, I will be back with reviews of it. So don't miss out on that. Hit the subscribe button, come join the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave me a comment on your thoughts on this current episode of Quantum Leap, on this series of Quantum Leap and how it's going. So as I said, this episode here titled Stand By Ben. Now if you've seen the movie Stand By Me, the classic film, then you will get the title Stand By Ben. It's a kind of a play on that, with these youngsters escaping this military school and heading off into the wilderness. So in this episode we have Ben, who actually jumps into the body of Benjamin Winters, who's a 16-year-old at a military academy, a military school. We're in July 10th of 1996, and we jump in as these four youngsters are escaping this school, and they steal a car and off they go to get away from this academy. En route away, they've all share their plans of what they plan on doing once they've got away, where they plan on going. But the car suffers an issue and off the road it goes. We come to learn that in the true timeline, these four kids die. They end up dying, but it's reported that they've died in a hiking accident. They've got lost and succumbed to the ravages of the weather, the heat exhaustion. Yeah, so this episode here follows these four kids. They're all troubled individuals in their own way. They've all got their own little backstory of issues with their parents, issues in life, self-harming, getting in trouble, all this sort of thing, and it's brought them together here in this time. And they decide to head through the wilderness. Ben himself tries to stop them because obviously he knows the outcome. Addison has told him, but instead they won't listen because they're youths, and he goes with them and to try and keep them alive, shall we say. And on the way they suffer the perils of what the wilderness has to offer, broken ankle, wolves in the wild, all this sort of thing, lack of water, lack of food, and they have to overcome all this, but whilst learning to trust one another and come together. And yeah, and then that's pretty much the story for the episode. In the B story, back home, obviously in the last episode we had that stuff with the visitation from Janice, and you've got everyone back there, Magic and his crew, trying to figure out where Janice has come from. Yeah, so Janice, lo and behold, is only 3 miles away, held up in a warehouse. Yes, and they managed to track her by looking at power usage, because there's a spike in power usage when she used her imaging chamber, much like what theirs does, so they can track her via that. But she's watching them through their own system, through the cameras in the Quantum Leap HQ, and she locks the building down. She locks it down, and Magic and Bitrate Ming-Na Wen are stuck in the elevator, and they get a little bit of time to share, because Bitrate Ming-Na Wen, she's avoiding phone calls from her father, and she has to come to terms with what goes on with him. It's kind of mirroring the stuff with the kids in the 1996 story, actually, issues with parents and all this sort of a thing, and yeah, and has to come together with that, and they just have to try and figure out how to overcome the system to open it all back up again, and all this sort of stuff going on. So as episodes go, I think this one was a bit of a downturn, I'll be honest. I didn't mind the four kids together. The story was fine, and they were fine acting in their roles. However, some of the storytelling, some of the writing in this episode is a bit by the numbers, shall we say. For example, after this vehicle goes off the road and crashes down, you've got Ben asking everyone if they're okay, if any of them have had any blows to their head. Yet all three of the other children are suffering injuries to their face and heads. Yes, they've got cuts on their heads, they've got grazes on their heads, they've got cuts on their face, which would suggest to me that very possibly you've had a strike to the head. But anyway, that's just some of the writing that you come to expect in these episodes. And the story, the programme can't help. And I know this is going to wind people up, and it really is. And it was very small, but it can't help without stepping into some sort of woke agenda.
Oh boy.
Yes, the young girl, the young one that ends up breaking her ankle, it turns out that she's had a girlfriend in the past. Yes, so that's a point where I just sort of rolled my eyes and said, you know, why? Why do we have to include this type of storytelling? Why can't they just be normal people and this stuff not even be mentioned? Why does it have to be mentioned? You know, would the story lack anything more if it wasn't? No, it wouldn't. But anyway, the episode ends with everyone, you know, happy. They come to learn that the military school were actually, you know, obviously they're bullying people, they're bullying kids, essentially torturing them, putting them into small boxes, leaving them in there for a couple of days, for weeks on end, as the sun beats down on them, you know, sort of torturous type of thing that you see in these sort of films and that sort of thing. And it all gets uncovered, all happy ending, and everyone's fine, and the kids all remain friends for the rest of their lives. But what we're left with as a season finale is that Ben actually remembers the reason why he's leapt. Yes, he remembers the reason why he leapt. It comes to him. That memory finally comes back, and him working with Janice, which is great. But we come to learn the reason that he's leapt is to save Addison. So something's happened to Addison at some point, and he's leapt to save her. Okay, that's the biggie that comes out of this episode. That's the biggie. So it's got nothing to do with Scott Bakula's character, Sam Beckett. It's to do with Addison. Now, I don't know how to take that. I don't know whether this is a good reveal or a bad reveal. To be honest, it's kind of like a sort of nonchalant reveal for me. It's not something that particularly excites me going forward. It kind of seems a bit sort of lackluster, a bit anticlimactic, shall we say. Obviously, we don't know the reason why he left. I mean, that's the reason why he left, but we don't know the reasons behind it. What happens to her? Why he's trying to save her? What the occurrence is that happens, and how he knows this anyway? Because would it be down the line, or is it something that he's already stopped on one of his future jump? I don't know. It boggles the mind. Anyway, so that's what we're left with, and then Ben leaps out, but we don't get to see him leap into where he's going to leap into next. It just sort of fades to black. I don't know about this ending. I don't know. Could it have benefited from him showing where he leaps to as well? The sort of leap next to, so you've got two avenues of tease, shall we say, as opposed to the one. I think that might have been a bit better, or would you still think that would have been a bit sort of over the top, a bit too much? I don't know. Anyway, that's this episode of Quantum Leap. Stand by Ben. I think a dip in quality back down. Yeah, but even Ben himself in this one, very flustered in what's going on, like panicking over the lives of these kids, and I never got the sense of the tragedy that was going to befall them, that it was helpless. The situation they were in was helpless, because the kids never looked any different. It ain't like they're suffering with sores on their lips through dehydration or anything like that. The stakes didn't feel as big as what Ben acting that they are, and all this sort of a thing. But that's only me, you know, sort of nitpicking. Anyway, so that's it. That's the end of this talk for this episode. Let me know your thoughts down below on this episode, whether this works for you, whether it doesn't work for you, whether the show is working for you, whether it isn't. Are you jumping ship now? Are you going to be back after this mid-season break, or aren't you? Are you lost it altogether with this show? I'll be interested to know. Let me know. Let's talk Quantum League. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care all. And